Hi guys, it's been a while since I started part 1 of the Myford rare parting tool holder, and I did part 1 and I showed for March or April this year when I did that, and I meant to get straight on and do part 2 and even if it needed it a part 3. Unfortunately all sorts been happening, but we went off to Canaries for a couple of holidays, one in April, and I think we did another one last month for a fortnight with family. So that sort of took its turn, and I did loads of videos and various things for family while we were over there. And other things have been happening, you know, around the house and work and one thing and another, as in work, not retired work. I'm retired. It's work as in bits and bats, sorting my van out and one thing and another. So we got round to finishing it off, and it's now complete. So this is part 2 and I'm finished it. Now I'm doing introduction to finishing it, which is a bit backwards, but there you go. So it's done and you'll see how I've done it. There were a couple of bloopers. I might include them, I don't know, I'm not sure yet, but I did break one of my nice radius cutters, which we're a bit upset about, but unfortunately it was my own fault. Everything that goes wrong in this workshop is my fault. It's stuff I've done wrong, and it's only when you've done it wrong and you've bust something or something's been drilled wrong or whatever that you realise you've done it wrong. And a couple of these things I've done, you'll see. I'll probably put them on at the end, tag them on at the end, a bit like Curtis does with cutting edge engineering. He's great, isn't he? That guy's clever. He does some real nice work. Okay, so I'll go on and start showing you it, and then I might do another introduction if there becomes a part 3. I'm not sure yet. There's 32 with this, 33 videos, and each one is probably over half an hour long. So as you can imagine, there's an awful lot of editing to do. I'll probably be all night tonight or tomorrow editing it in the editing software that I use, my Pinnacle Studio, and chopping pieces out and, you know, maybe putting some titles in and one thing and another of what I've done. Okay guys, so I will get over onto the bench, or is it milling machine, I'm not sure now, and we'll start it. Okay, part 2. Still not square like that. It's been quite a way out, that chunk. These were as bought. So yeah, this is part 2. Part 1 I started a long time ago. I've been that waylaid with other jobs and things, I've never got round to doing a part 2. So this is it. Okay, I'll knock off at that. I'll come back when I've got all this ready. That took some cutting, and my fault. I made a bit of a mistake. I shall explain. Cut it straight away. So now I'll take that block out. I'll put that in a milling machine and face it flat to the size I want, which is probably about 40th out to come off it. And then I'll turn it and do the same again, cut another piece off because it wants to be 1.5 inch square. But I don't want to go and turn it now and cut it, because if I do I won't have two faces that are square to each other in the vise. So if I face that off, then I've got a nice square face to do the next one. Okay, so I just thought I'd show that, cutting that last bit off. It's taken about 20 minutes to do that, but you know what, I don't care, it saved my shoulder. So this is where I need to get it down to my little mark line, so it's 1.5 inches. You probably won't see that, but there's a fine scribe line there in the blue. I think that'll do. Can always stone that off after. Just run the file down it so I don't chop. I don't cut my fingers. So that's down to 1.5 inches. I now need to slice a chunk off that side so that that's well, I'm really happy with how square that's cutting. If I can get a, you can see from that, it's a lovely square cut, straight, square, everything, great. So it paid off just doing the fine little adjustments on it when I first put it back together. Yes, been a good machine. So that's the second piece cut, and that's got to be milled now. So I'm facing the other piece of this block off now. Just for reference, that's a 50mm 246 insert, I believe. Yeah, 6 insert face cutter, face mill, whatever you want to call it. It's a fairly good quality one, although it is making a lot of scratch marks, but nothing too bad. Speed, what am I running at? Oh, you can't see that anyway, but no, it's 726, it's 725 that's running at. It'll probably run to nothing, because even though I thought it had cut straight on the saw, it hadn't. It was a bit out, not a lot. Excuse the noise. Need to get round the camera to the Z. So unlock it. I'll come up another 10,000. Lock the Z. Right, so now that's cut square. I have checked it with my little engineer square, and it's lovely. All the way around, that's square, which is, I guess, the importance of having your vice on your milling machine squared up properly, which it is. Now the next thing is, this is a piece of plate that was going to clamp on the side of it, but since I cut it down, it obviously wants to be a lot narrower, so there's a fair bit of cutting on that to do. But then I've looked at the pieces that I've sliced off, and I think that'll be strong enough to clamp this parting blade into the side of there. My idea was to mill out a slot to accept that, but not quite the depth of the blade, so that this clamp over the top will squeeze it down and stop it moving. It won't be able to slot that way. No. Start again. I've had a million ideas in my head, and this is just one of them. Start again. Right. That's going to stay like that. This is going to have this machined out to accept this, so that I can put 4 bolts in it, and 2 here, 2 there, and 2 below, and they'll be counterbored and slotted, so that I can move this up and down. So obviously dead centre would be dead centre of the tip of that blade to the centre of my chuck for parting, but with a little adjustment up and down, just because sometimes these are not always exactly that size, and if I got some others and they weren't the same, then this wouldn't be on centre line anymore, and there'd be no way of adjusting it. So that was my idea of having an adjustable parting off tool, that I could move that up and down, only by a small amount, probably maybe 3mm total, 4, that's all, just so I've got a little bit of either side of centre up and down. So the next job is, well, can I use that? If I machine some of that away and then pinch it with 4 bolts, is it going to bend it? Because I'm not quite going the depth of that. Like I said, That's going to stick out a bit, so it'll press hard on the side of there, which will give you your locking idea, so it can't move. And as I say, it can't move that way because it'll be cut into there with a little dovetail at the bottom what that sits in. So okay, that's got it. That's got it. So now that's flat, that's going to be the holder. So much easier. I'm going to a depth of 2.4 millimeters. Have a look at me. What have we got so far? 25.06. This blade's 26 millimeters wide. So that's worked out. That's just what I want. So I shall come back to 0 again on my DRO. For those that don't know, I can simply show it. So I've come back to 0 on X. Now I know that the edge of that cutter is bang on in that slot at the edge, the start of the cut. I'm at 0.36 of a millimetre of cut so far. I need to come up some more. I'm not going silly at a time. I could take all that out in one go, but I choose not to. Let's nibble away. Look at that for a fit. So it goes in that way. Fantastic. Absolutely spot on. Let's just take this cutter out before I damage it. See that? Yep. So that's the cutter, the parting off blade, and it's going to go upside down because I'm going to run it clockwise on the Myford because you can't run it any other way, and I've got that in wrong way around. Idiot. Right, so it will go in like that, and then that's going to clamp onto the side of the block, and it's going to be fixed with 4 fixings, 2 at top, 2 at bottom. They're going to be slotted and counterbored and counter slotted, and I'll be able to adjust the blade up and down on the block. This block needs cutting down, that's the bottom, so I'm going to probably take a chunk off the top. I don't need it that tall, and the stud I've got ain't long enough anyway without making another one. Right, so this is using fly cutter. It's a new one actually, and they just come with a piece of tool steel in them, and I've just sharpened it up on the white stone over there, and let's give it a go. And it seems like it's cutting quite well. I'm only doing a real shallow cut, taking it real steady. I might use power feed. A good finish. You can actually see it now. This is what I was on about before, where you get your crisscross. You can see if you've got your bed in tram properly, your milling machine in tram. So okay, can you see that? lines cut that way, lines cut that way. That proves you've got it in tram properly, because it's cutting on both strokes. But we'll take another little cut. See the ring following there. Lovely. Really nice finish, a lot better than what the face mill did. I ought to run over actually with that and get a much better result. I'll set it all up and I'll come back. It's nicer. I'm still going to need stoning to get it perfect. That's better than that. Might do, 'cause it's high speed steel is the cutter. It's better. It wants stoning, does that, or rubbing on a sheet of emery. I need to take them burrs off, and I'll be cutting my fingers. But yeah, that's good. We're all good. Right, so that's the block, and that's the top. That mark is dead centre line of my chuck. This is my blade and holder. The tooth of that line there has to be that cutting tooth there, which would put me dead on centre line. The bottom line's up, the top needs cutting down. So we've done okay. And then with the bolt holes to drill and slot, so that this can go there. The adjustment's only going to be up a bit and down a bit. That's all it wants to be. Yeah, that comes below that, but it doesn't matter because it's on another block. This sits on another block, which is something else I'll actually show you. That was the other thing I wasn't right happy about with the Myford, with the T-slots, is that the stud comes through this plate, and then this goes onto the second T-slot in from the back. So what you've actually got is a T-slot there and a T-slot there, and then my plan is to pin this to the bottom of this. Now I can do that various ways. I could use a couple of rolled steel pins to pin it so that it's actually attached, or I could drill that, counterbore it and put something like these in. Well, it wouldn't be them because they're not thick enough. I don't know, there might be. Probably mushroom heads would be better because they're shallower, aren't they? And so that would become one structure, will that, and the centre bolt go all the way through that one. So instead of just being held on one single bolt, which is what I believe the Myford one is, and some people on model engineering site have actually said, you know, be careful, especially if you've got an import lathe, the cast iron isn't always too strong, and you could pull a T-slot out, you could break the T-slot. I'm not sure on the Myford whether you would, but because they're quite tough, but who knows, anything's possible if you had a jam up that you could pull the T-slot out and damage it. So this way I've covered it with another 2 bolts there and that T keyway. So we should be quite strong when it's finished, and easily removable. It'll just be the nut on the top, 2 nuts there, and it'll lift off when I'm not using it. So far we've had. Right, so if you can see what I've done here, I've started. Well, I've marked it all out first of all for the slotted 4 screws that are going to hold this plate to the block, and I've drilled pairs of holes. I've just started with actually I haven't used a spotting drill, I've used a centre drill, but just so I could see more accurately where I was going. So I've just put 4 pilots top and bottom. These have got to be drilled and then slotted, and then after that I've got to counterbore for the head. So it's got to be slotted to take the M6, and then it's got to be counterbored and slotted to take the head of the M6 in there. And as you see, there's only going to be a small amount of movement on it. I did say originally, didn't I say, a couple of millimetres each side, 4 mil probably in total, which is probably what I've got there. Just a little bit, just so there's a bit of blade adjustment. I am going to make another one of these, and I'll show you why. I've got it out, have I? Yeah. I've got another piece of spare steel, and I've got loads of these little dinky blades. If you can read that. BSA Tools Limited. I'm taking it there must be fairly old. High speed steel, parting off blades, little dinky ones. So I'm going to make another plate so that I can sandwich to the block a smaller one of those without using the same one. I'll just swap them over, because if you remember I did have 2 spare pieces of this over when I cut the block up, so why not use it? I suppose I could make as many as I wanted for different types of parting blades if insert type is not successful, which I'm sure it will be, but if it's not. Okay, so I'll complete this and then I'll show you the finished result, because all I'm doing is drilling, slotting, milling cutter, plunging, one thing and another, which I'm sure you've seen plenty before. So I'll do that and then I'll come back when it's ready. Right, so how far have we got? Right, two things. One is, and I know already what I'm going to do, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I'm doing this purely for strength. I've got some buttonhead M6s and I've got some standard socket cap ones. Now, the thing with these is you can get an Allen key purchase quite good into them and really nip them, whereas with the dome head ones, they're not very deep, and I've stripped them out before with Allen keys on motorbikes, so I've gone with that, but I can't go deep enough so that that disappears. But it doesn't matter because it's just hanging over the side of the block, so it doesn't really matter. But I don't want to go any deeper because of the thickness of the steel and the, you know, the amount of purchase on it. I don't want it starting to try and pull through. So basically I've drilled them and I've counterbored them. So now we've got the adjustment I talked about. I've transferred through. Originally we're going to clamp this and drill straight through with pilots, but I realised the pilot holes I had were at the beginning and at the end of the slot. I needed them in the centre, so I couldn't do it that way. So I've marked them through, I've clamped this on with this little G clamp, and I've marked them through. So it's as good as I am with a centre punch now, or a centre. Could probably do it with centre. I've got a centre finder type with a pointer on. Have a few. Oh, look. A couple of different ones. I've got your standard one, which is your offset one that you knock offset. This offsets at the back as well. That's one that I left. The other one I've got is just solid there, and that just goes off. And then I've got this one with a sharp point on, which might be handy to find the centre of that. Might benefit me to actually put that in and come down with it, and I can get my centre, and then DRO 0 and do some measurements on that. So tonight, you know, you've seen what I've been doing, but I've been using that DRO and I marked it all up, and I'll take the tape off now. But any of you want to get a milling machine, make sure you get a DRO. These are all measurements that I struck up as I went along. You know, 0, then 455 mil, then 455 millimeters, yeah. Then no, 0.45 millimeters, then 45.545 millimeters, and then 79.14 millimeters, and then all them are bang on. So every time you want to drill the hole, you know, you go from one end to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, then just come forward with X, Y, and do the same again, and you can't be wrong. You bang on every time. Lovely jubbly. So that's really handy thing to have as a DRO. Okay, I've harped on enough, so I'm going to finish for tonight. Tomorrow I'll get these drilled and I can get this clamped on. I don't know whether I'm going to make the second one yet for the little parting blade. I'll probably do that as an after thing, because all I want to do is get this up and running and see if it works. If it does, I can make as many holders as I want, can't I really? Because all it is that. So you've got that with your, that way up, with your blade in, and I could make as many of them as I wanted with any size blade I wanted. And I've got a few different eclipse bits of blade and all sorts. Some of them have got a profile on them. But yeah, that's enough for tonight. Right, so you now get an idea of what it's all about. So that's fully down and that's up, so there's that much. You see the blade going up and down. And then when I tighten those, that blade will be gripped. So we're nearly there. What there is left to do is to support this base, sort this base, sorry. So I need to bore a hole all the way through, dead centre of this, all the way through, for a clamping bolt. And then I need to fix this somehow to the bottom of this, which I was talking about pinning it, but I don't think I will. I think what I'll do, you see that, what I'll probably do is drill a hole there and a hole there and counterbore them. Maybe use these button heads. They're only going in once, they won't come out again. Just so that that is supported to that, not just clamped with that bolt. So it's physically one piece. And there's no point in me welding it because it makes a mess, doesn't it? So there we go. We're not far off now, but we will carry on with it. And then once it's done, I've got a mammoth task of cleaning it all up. And I don't know whether to polish it, but I'm not always successful polishing stuff because in here in winter, you know, it gets a bit cold. And even if it don't get damp, you get condensation, don't you? So what I might do, I'm sure I've still got some, if I can find it. Yeah. These use Phillips Cold Blue for guns. Now, it's blue, and people call it gun blue, cold blue, but it's actually black. It stains the metal black, the chemical reaction it has. So I'll leave that out because that's probably will end up all black, but I do want to fettle it. Other thing is, I don't know whether to radius all these corners to make it look nice. It won't make it work any better. But one thing I have got is a bit of time on my hands, so why not round all edges, make it look quite good. If I clamp them together like that's clean, I could actually maybe get a short chamfer on there as well, or a round edge. Maybe down that face, and that face, and down there, and down the back corner, and then the tops. Yeah, I think the Myford one's got a bit of a chamfer on it. They look quite nice, the genuine ones, if there is such a thing. Okay, I'll come back when I've done a bit more, but we're getting there. Right, I've just nipped these bolts in, just nipped them up with it in its level position, as in it should fit and work like that. And I've nipped it, so now you can see the blade is now trapped. I can bring it up close and you can see that the blade's trapped. There's only a few thou of proudness on that, but I've got to clean these faces. Both the block face and the plate have got a lot of blue on them, and lumps and bits and bats of blue stuck up, so you know, it'll be okay. That's tight as it is, so it'll only get tighter. Happy with it? Yeah, great. It's come out exactly as I imagined, without much of a drawing really, and it ain't to me drawing. The drawing I did had that the other way around, and this blade were on the outside. It was later that I decided to trap it on the inside, using the plate to hold it. Okay. Right, so that's the hole through the centre. What did I use? This is an old bolt, an old coach bolt or something that somebody had used and machined up. So I'm going to use it. And it's old 3/8. I'm guessing that's Whitworth, don't know. So I've drilled it 3/8 because there was the metric equivalent with 9.5 something. But that's great. Good fit. Not a tight fit, but a good fit. That's going to be perfect. So, yeah, these are them drills. I think I got these from RDG Tools, and they've been quite good, these drill bits. That's just bored out way through there, no trouble. I didn't go through straight through. I went through with a 6.5 long series bit that I had. Okay, just thought I'd show that. So next thing is 2 holes to pin it together and bolt it together. Again, I shall come back when we get somewhere closer. When I drill these 2 pilot holes, the little pilots, is I set my X and Y at 0 after doing this one, then move to that one. So now all I've got to do is wind my X it's the top 2 you're looking at, X and Y. I need to set them to 0. Too far. A lot of play in these nuts. Okay, so that's X at 0, and I'll now do my Y. Too far yet. Very finicky, but worth doing. From that hole there across to that hole there, by simply setting them two back to 0. And now I know when I drill that hole, it's going to be exactly where my pilot was. So I'm going through them both, and that'll be the tapping size for the block. Then I'll have to remove the base. I think I'll edit that out. I'll get back to my 0. 0 my little DRO. Twelve, 13, 15, what did I do with the one? 18 and a half, we're at 18. 18 and a half, that's well enough. Right, so that needs splitting apart now, and I can tap the block, and then these want drilling out to accept the M6 bolts, and then counterboring for the button heads. But again, I'll come back. I just thought I'd show little bits as I go along. Okay, so again, I've counterbored using a milling cutter. I've counterbored for the head of the screw. In there. So I've got to move to the next position, which I marked on here, because that was a 0, I believe, yeah. So I need to go to X 24.155. And Y 24975. And that should be great for the counterbar. And I'm going deep, 2.7 mil. And that should be Okay, so that should be our 2 counterbore holes. The only thing left to do is to drill the actual main piece of that out to M6. As long as I've drilled this big enough diameter for those button-head bolts. Let's have a look. Yep. Yep, lovely. Okay, I'll just strip this, drill them out, and I'll bolt this lot together, and that should be the actual construction finished. Then it's just a case of cosmetics. Don't pick it up then. So I brought this blade guide back so that there wasn't a lot of distance between the blade, obviously for more support, and it was cutting great. And then I got a phone call and I went out talking to my mate outside, and what I didn't realise was I'd moved this too far this way, and one of the bearing guides was sat on the back of this fixed jaw, and it won't cut in. And for the last quarter of an inch I was thinking it's taking its time. I checked blade and put it on a higher speed. I tried all sorts and it made no difference. And then I realised, what an idiot. So I've moved the guide back and whooshka, cut it straight away. If I turn that upside down it won't fall out. Okay. It will if you turn it sideways. It won't fall out. It says. Well, I guess we're not going to show that bit. Edit. But it don't matter because that's in there and it is sandwiched. So that's going to be sandwiched against